Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
More than 13,000 illegal immigrants.
Wales man has reportedly died 8 days after receiving
58,000 migrants with felony records.
They really are men who will do anything to save themselves. That's who you should be afraid of.
Throughout history, fear has driven humanity. Most people do whatever they can do to avoid living in fear. This impulse is ingrained in humans and all creatures, comparable to the desire to be free. To paraphrase from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right to live without constant fear is a freedom in and of itself.
The universal human right to live free from fear is often violated for manipulative purposes by the media and politicians, who have a responsibility to uphold this right by telling the truth.
Freedom from fear is not simply the right to live without fearing anything. Fear, after all, is a natural part of life. However, problems begin to arise when this fear is amplified and exploited. True freedom from fear encompasses three key components: safety, security, and protection from oppression. Under freedom from fear, the military and law enforcement are meant to protect people from this physical and psychological violence. President Truman acknowledged this promise in his address to the NAACP.
Many of our people still suffer the indignity of insult, the harrowing fear of intimidation, and I regret to say, the threat of physical injury and mob violence. The conscience of our nation and the legal machinery which enforces it have not yet secured to each citizen full freedom from fear.
The issues he highlighted, which rampantly affected African Americans at the time, were some of the biggest issues standing in the way of freedom from fear. Americans should be able to live their lives in safety and free from oppression. As he said, there's supposed to be legal machinery that protects civil liberties. Let's dive into the origins of the freedom from fear.
The fourth is freedom from fear.
As the country teetered on the precipice of war, Franklin Roosevelt rallied the nation to fight against the Axis powers, giving birth to the concept of four freedoms in his Four Freedoms speech. With the threat of World War looming over him, Roosevelt asserted that people should not have to live in fear of military aggression. The concept of freedom from fear expanded as the nation faced new threats, becoming the idea that people shouldn't live in fear of oppression and aggression, whether it be domestic or foreign. Like an importunate cancer, American fear perpetually and chaotically evolves, approaching the asymptote of impossibility in its eradication. Since the Second World War, American fears have mutated beyond fear of war, and in the looming shadow of the Cold War, Americans feel that nuclear Armageddon could come at any moment. According to the 2022 National Defense Survey, a whopping 70% of Americans are extremely or somewhat concerned about the possibility of Russia launching a thermonuclear attack against the US. Now, there have been efforts made to reassure Americans that there is no need to be afraid of nuclear war happening, such as this speech by Acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for Space Policy, Dr. Vipin Narang.
We were encouraged when the 5 declared nuclear weapon states, including Russia and China, affirmed that a nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought.
When it comes to reassuring America, there is no entity more powerful, with more potential to do good, than the media. The media is the lens through which people see the world. But what happens when this lens is broken and distorted? Like a mafia profiting off of the innocent, the media on a massive scale has failed to report ethically, breaking the responsibility to uphold freedom from fear. News organizations infamously overreport and exaggerate the influx of illegal immigrants. Immigrants have become the scapegoat of America's problems. Man drives into a crowd in New Orleans, killing 14 immigrants. Lost her cat? Immigrants ate them. It's sad that I even have to say this, but the media is responsible for reporting on the truth and should not be misconstruing evidence or reporting on lies for monetary gain. As humans have the fundamental right to be free from fear, the media has the fundamental responsibility to tell the truth. While some news organizations flat out lie, a more common trend is twisting the truth for engagement. Turn on the news and you'll see dozens of negative headlines across the board. The Berkeley Beacon highlighted an example. A clear case of a fallacy called a false dilemma, where a fake problem is created and all consequences are assumed to be true. Claims of COVID-19 related deaths were baseless, yet the article presented in a nature that people believed it could. Articles like this fuel conspiracy theories and fear. The idea that people are becoming increasingly afraid isn't just speculation either. A survey done by the Global Challenges Foundation found that 60% of respondents felt that the world was more dangerous than it was 2 years ago. Despite this sentiment, global homicide and crime rates have been on a steady decline for decades. This is fear-mongering at its finest. The world is getting safer, yet people are more afraid than ever. The constant fear is highly problematic. It is no accident that Americans have been put on edge. It is a mass manipulation tactic and a sign that the country is on a dangerous path. Nonviolence stands as the most potent tool for the oppressed, while fear remains the most powerful weapon of the oppressor. As corroborated by Psychology Today, politicians and news media deliberately create fear for monetary gain. According to the article, the media is symbiotic in that politicians and law enforcement need communication channels to distribute their rhetoric, and the media need tantalizing news content to attract a wide audience, which, in turn, attracts advertisers. In scenarios like when Ben Shapiro tried to pin the political left and right against each other on his YouTube channel, politicians get rid of the middleman to more efficiently spread hate and fear. The devastating side effect of this type of reporting is an increase in violence and a risk to democracy. Firstly, the increase of violence and hatred. When you look at the current rhetoric used to describe immigrants and the reporting of such events, there are striking similarities to the lowest points in human history. One of the most stunning parallels is between American fear-mongering and that of Nazi Germany. According to Holocaust sources and context, the Nazi regime promoted a fear-based worldview that Germany was under attack from both internal and external enemies, such as Jews, communists, and other perceived racial political enemies. Doesn't this ring a bell?
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within.
A study found that negative media portrayals of immigrants increased the testosterone-cortisol ratio, which is a proxy for proneness to social aggression. I wish this was the worst of it, but it can get worse. A totalitarian nation is ruled by fear. As Psychology Today argues, when people feel afraid or anxious, they are more likely to support totalitarian leaders. As you remember that fear was an essential part of Hitler's rise to power, reality dawns. The parallels between Hitler's ascension to power and Trump's rise to presidency are foreboding. Hitler exploited the economic instability of post-World War Germany by blaming Jews, communists, political opponents, and anyone who didn't belong to the pure German race. He coupled this with threats to the German people, instilling his citizens with fear and anger. Trump doesn't just blame Jews and communists. Trump blames immigrants and Marxists. His xenophobic and racist rhetoric take advantage of the increase in testosterone-cortisol ratio, fueling an angry and fearful population. History repeats itself when we don't listen the first time. The warning signs are clear. The right to live free from fear is dying. It's not just dying, it's being skillfully and deliberately murdered. Most modern-day media and politicians like Donald Trump and the media companies he has under his wing don't care about FDR's fundamental freedoms. Now, unlike the media, I'll tell you the silver lining to all this, instead of leaving you in fear of imminent totalitarian Armageddon. There are news sources that do report responsibly, such as Ground News and Tangle News. These media companies are committed to providing unbiased information made to tell you the truth instead of making you afraid. As mainstream media continues on its pursuit of the scariest, most clickable story, be aware of your right to live free from fear in the hidden agenda of the media.